I stayed a virgin for 26 years. Then a grandma stabbed me in the butt and gave me illegal Rizz, the best gift of my life. That sentence sounds like something a drunk man would scream outside a convenience store at 2 in the morning. Unfortunately, I was sober. My name is Renji Sato, and before that night my entire life could be summarized in 3 words. Cheap, tired, invisible. I was the kind of guy people only noticed when I blocked the printer. I had a cheap black office bag with 1 broken zipper, 3 pairs of socks that had already given up on me, and a bank account that made vending machines look wealthy. I had never had a girlfriend. I had never even held a woman's hand long enough to know if my palm was normal. At work, my boss made sure I never forgot any of that. Reina Kurosawa walked through our office like the building had been constructed only to frame her entrance. Tall, sharp, black hair down her back, white jacket, perfect heels, perfect makeup, and the emotional warmth of a locked freezer. Men strained their backs when she passed. Women lowered their voices. Even the copy machine seemed to jam less when she looked at it. I hated how beautiful she was. I hated it because she knew. That evening, she stopped beside my desk while I was fixing a file Haruto Mikami had ruined. Haruto was our polished sales prince. Clean suit, clean skin, clean smile, clean future. The kind of man who looked like he had never eaten convenience store dinner over a sink. Reina placed 1 red-painted fingernail on the stack of papers in front of me. Renji, she said loud enough for the whole team to hear, do not stand near Haruto during tomorrow's client prep. I looked up. Why? Reina gave me a small smile. Because you make him look like he's doing charity. Few people laugh too fast. Haruto did not laugh out loud. He just looked down and smiled into his coffee like a prince pretending to be humble. Yui Takebana, who sat 2 desks over, stopped typing. I should have said something. I really should have. In my head I said many things. Beautiful things. Brave things. Things that would have made office history. What came out of my mouth was, okay. Reina picked up the file I had just fixed and glanced at the numbers. Good, at least you can still do quiet work. She turned toward Haruto and handed him the folder. Haruto, use this tomorrow, the client trusts your face. Haruto took it, of course, Manager Kurosawa. My face burned. Reina looked back at me. And Renji. Yes. If a woman smiles at you in this office, she is being polite. Do not build a personality around it. The room went quiet for half a second. Then someone coughed, someone else pretended to check their phone. Reina walked away before I could even swallow. Haruto tapped the folder against his palm and gave me a smile that looked friendly from far away. Thanks for cleaning this up, he said. He did not say it loudly. He did not have to. Haruto knew how to make politeness hurt. He thanked me the way a man thanked a waiter for bringing water, then carried my work to Reina like it had always belonged in his hands. I looked at the spreadsheet still open on my monitor. The mistake he had made was gone. My name was nowhere. That was normal. That was the worst part. Yui rolled her chair closer after Reina left. That was ugly, Yui said quietly. It's fine, I said. It was not fine. It was work ugly, different category. Yui stared at me. You always do that. Do what? Act like being stepped on is part of the uniform. I wanted to laugh, it came out weak. At 9:40 that night, I left the office with my shoulders folded into my coat. The city was damp from earlier rain. Neon signs reflected in the sidewalk. My stomach growled so loudly that a man near the elevator looked at me like I had brought a small animal to work. I had 3 coins in my pocket, 1 convenience store coupon, and no dignity. At the corner near the station, I saw an old woman sitting on a folded cardboard box. She had a gray hood, tiny shoulders, and a paper cup in front of her. She looked like a side character from a game that had been patched badly. I almost walked past her. Then I remembered Reina saying no woman smiled at me unless she was being polite. I remembered Haruto taking my file. I remembered Yui telling me I acted like being stepped on was part of the uniform. So I stopped. I dropped my 3 coins into the old woman's cup. It made the saddest sound in human history. The grandma looked up at me. Her eyes were too bright. At first I thought she had contacts in. Then I remembered she was sitting on cardboard beside a drain, wearing gloves with holes in the fingers, and decided fashion was probably not the issue. She looked straight at my face like she had been waiting for me all night. Blue or red, she asked. I stared at her. Excuse me. She opened one wrinkled hand, 2 pills sat on her palm, 1 blue, 1 red. Blue, she said, you wake up rich, $30 million in the bank. I blinked. Red, she said, women finally look at you. I looked down the street. I looked back at her. Grandma, I said, are you offering me drugs because I gave you pocket change? She smiled. Smart thing would have been to run. I was not smart. I was tired, poor, hungry, and apparently the kind of man who debates drug offers with street grandmas. I pointed at the blue pill. You take that one, I said. If it works, you won't have to sit out here. For 1 second, the old woman's smile softened. Then it became terrifying. Oh, she said, you are stupid but sweet. Thank you, I think. I started walking away. Behind me, the cup scraped against the pavement. I turned around. Grandma was standing. He was holding a syringe. My brain needed a moment to process that image, because old women on cardboard boxes were not supposed to have combat equipment. Wait, I said. She ran at me. Not walked. Ran. I made a sound that I hope no security camera recorded. I turned, slipped on the wet sidewalk, recovered, and took 3 desperate steps before something sharp stabbed straight into my right butt cheek. I froze. Grandma leaned close to my ear. Your change made my day, son. And my knees folded. I last thought before the street went black was not noble. It was not brave. It was, I cannot believe I stayed a virgin this long just to be murdered through my ass. When I woke up, I was in my apartment, face down on my futon, one sock missing, mouth dry, pants half twisted, and my right butt cheek pulsing like it had a heartbeat. My phone was under my pillow. My bag was beside the door. Someone had even taken off my shoes, which was considerate and terrifying. I did not know how I got home. I did not know if the grandma carried me, called a cab, or dragged me by one ankle like a suspicious shopping bag. I did not know where the grandma went. I only knew one thing. Actually, I knew two, if I counted the fact that sitting down had become a negotiation. If life had finally decided to give me something, it had chosen the weirdest delivery method possible. The next morning, I limped into the office late. Reina was waiting near the copy room, arms folded, white jacket clean enough to blind poor people. You're late, she said. I had a medical situation. Her eyes moved down. You look like your medical situation lost. She stepped closer and grabbed my right hand to slap a folder into my palm. The moment her fingers touched mine, Reina stopped. Not for long. 1 second. Maybe less. But that 1 second was more attention than she had given me in 3 years without insulting payroll, my posture, or my face. But I saw it. Her fingers tightened. Her lips parted. Her eyes moved over my face like she had walked into the wrong room and found a different man standing there. Then she let go so fast the folder almost fell. Her face hardened. Why are you looking at me like that? Reina snapped. Fix your face. I had no idea what my face was doing. But my right hand felt warm. And for the first time in my life, Reina Kurosawa looked angry because she had noticed me. I spent the next 10 minutes pretending my right hand was normal. It was not. Normal hands do not make gorgeous bosses freeze like their brain skipped a step. Normal hands do not feel warm after 1 second of contact. Normal hands do not make a man limp into the bathroom, lock himself in a stall, and whisper, "Grandma, what the hell did you put in my butt?" I also checked my bank account because part of me still had respect for the blue pill option. It was still tragic. 3,800 yen stared back at me like it wanted an apology. So no, I had not become rich. I had become whatever came after being poor, stabbed, and weirdly interesting. I stared at my palm. It looked the same. 5 fingers, cheap skin, 1 paper cut from a printer tray, no glowing marks, no dramatic symbol, no red button that said illegal Rizz activation. Honestly, a label would have helped. Yui knocked on the bathroom door from outside. Renji, are you dying in there? No, you said that like a dying person. I'm checking something. In the men's room, it is a private investigation. Please do not make me regret asking. I stuffed my right hand into my pocket and stepped out. Yui looked me up and down. She had short hair, tired eyes, and the expression of a woman who had seen enough office nonsense to survive a war. You're walking weird, she said. I slept wrong. With your butt, yes. Yui stared for a beat, then she said, that is the most Renji answer possible. I wanted to explain everything. I wanted to say, Yui, an old woman offered me pills, stabbed me in the butt, and now Reina reacts to my hand like I have been upgraded by a suspicious god. But I knew how that sounded, so I said, I'm fine. Yui pointed at my pocket. Then why are you hiding your hand? I pulled it out too fast. I'm not. You are sweating. I am a passionate employee. You look like you robbed a shrine. Before I could answer, Reina's voice cut across the hall. Renji, my spine tightened. Reina stood near the office entrance with Haruto beside her. Haruto looked perfect as usual. Reina looked better than perfect, which should have been illegal because evil should not get that kind of cheekbone structure. She looked at my hand first, then at my face. Bring the old client notes from storage, she said, and do not make Haruto wait. Haruto smiled. I can go with him. Reina did not look away from me. No, he can handle carrying paper. There it was, the old place, the old leash. I bowed a little. Sure. My voice came out casual, too casual. Reina noticed. Her eyes narrowed. It was the first time I realized confidence did not have to be big. Sometimes it was just not sounding like a man apologizing for breathing. I grabbed the storage key and left. On the way down, the elevator was packed. A woman in a beige coat stood beside me, holding a tote bag and trying to keep her balance. The elevator jerked, her hand slipped from the rail and landed against my right hand. My entire body locked. The woman looked up, her tired expression changed. Not dramatically, not like lightning, just a small pause. Her eyes softened, she tucked hair behind her ear and gave me a smile that had no business existing in my tax bracket. Sorry, she said. No, I said. I mean yes, I mean your hand, I mean my hand, I mean the elevator did this. The man beside us slowly turned his head. I faced the door and prayed for death, riches, or a second grandma. When the doors opened, I escaped first. At lunch, I went to the convenience store because my wallet had already voted against restaurants. I picked up the cheapest rice ball, a discount bread, and a canned coffee with a dent in it. At the register, the cashier scanned my items. 360 yen, she said. I held out coins, her fingers brushed my right hand. She looked up, she smiled. It was not the polite convenience store smile, I knew the polite one. I had lived on polite smiles the way rats lived on crumbs. This one lingered. Rough morning, she asked. I nearly dropped the coffee. Do I look that bad? She smiled wider, a little, but in a cute way. Cute, the word hit me so hard I forgot language. Behind me, an old man cleared his throat. The cashier handed me a receipt. Her nails were painted pale pink. I noticed that, which was new. Before this week, I only noticed prices, exits, and whether my shirt had a stain. Come again, she said. I nodded too seriously, like she had invited me to her family estate. Then I grabbed the bag, bowed too many times, and walked out with the wrong bag. I only noticed outside when I opened it and found strawberry milk, 2 fashion magazines, and a pack of face masks. I stood on the sidewalk staring into the bag. A woman had smiled at me, called me cute, and I had stolen her skincare. This was power, this was danger, this was illegal Rizz. Yes, I knew how stupid that sounded. I also knew I had just walked out with a stranger's face masks because a cashier smiled at me, so my dignity had already moved out. I went back inside and exchanged the bag while the cashier laughed into her sleeve. By the time I returned to the office, my head felt light, my right hand stayed in my pocket, my heart kept doing small stupid jumps. I had spent 26 years being furniture. One commuter smile and one cashier calling me cute had turned me into a man who almost walked into a glass door. When I entered the office, Reina looked up from her desk. She saw my face, her eyes sharpened. What happened to you? She asked. Nothing. You look pleased with yourself. I bought lunch. Congratulations, most adults do that without looking smug. Haruto glanced over and chuckled. I should have shrunk, instead I smiled just a little. Reina's expression changed again, not soft, not kind, worse, interested and angry about it. She stood and walked toward me. Renji, she said, people like you should be careful with confidence. The office quieted. I held my convenience store bag tighter. Reina stopped in front of me. It makes the disappointment easier to see. Few people laughed, less loudly than yesterday. Yui looked at me from across the room. I did not know what to say, so my mouth chose violence in its own awkward way. Then I guess I should practice. Reina blinked. Haruto stopped smiling. The room became quiet for one clean second. My heart nearly escaped through my mouth, but I did not take it back. And that was when I realized the gift had not only changed how women looked at me. It had changed how long I could stand being looked down on. The next day I tried to act normal. That failed before 9:30. Acting normal is hard when your right hand might be a social weapon, a miracle, a lawsuit, or all three. I kept it in my pocket. Then I took it out because hiding it looked suspicious. Then I held a folder with both hands like a monk carrying sacred rice. Then I dropped the folder because Yui asked, "Why are you holding paper like it owes you money?" The office noticed. Of course the office noticed. Office people notice everything except unpaid overtime and their own bad breath. By mid-morning, 2 women from accounting had smiled at me in the hallway. One of them asked if I had changed my hair. I had not changed my hair looked like it had lost a fight with sleep. Still, I said maybe. That was my first mistake. The second mistake happened in the elevator. I stepped in with Yui, 2 coworkers, and a woman from marketing named Aki. I pressed the button with my left hand, safe, responsible, adult. In the elevator lurched, Aki stumbled. I caught her with my right hand, her palm landed against mine. Her eyes lifted to my face. "Oh," she said softly. "No one says oh like that to me. People say move, sorry, and once, is this your umbrella or trash?" Yui saw everything. Her eyebrows went up so high they almost joined her bangs. I released Aki immediately. "Sorry, elevator." Aki smiled. "Thanks, Sato." She used my name, not you, not hey, my name. 2 coworkers behind us exchanged a look. One of them tried not to smile. That tiny hallway reaction should not have mattered, but for a man who had spent years as office background noise, it felt like someone had turned my volume up by 1 notch. When we stepped out, Yui grabbed my sleeve. "Explain," she said. "I am very stable in elevators." "No, that woman looked at you like you rescued her from a burning castle. It was a strong catch. You caught her elbow, important elbow." Yui squinted at me. "Something is happening. Maybe I am finally maturing." "Renji, yesterday you microwaved bread in its plastic wrapper. That was a texture experiment." Before Yui could destroy me further, Reina appeared at the end of the hallway. She had not seen the elevator catch. She did see Aki walking away while looking back once. Reina's eyes moved from Aki to me. Her smile arrived late. "Busy morning?" she asked. "Normal morning," I said. Reina stepped closer. She smelled expensive, not perfume exactly, more like clean paper, cold flowers, and money I would never have. "You are standing differently," Reina said. "I am standing the usual amount." "No," she said, "you're acting like someone encouraged you." Haruto came up behind her with a tablet in one hand. He looked at me, then at Reina, then back at me. "Did something happen?" Haruto asked. "You look energetic." The way he said energetic made it sound like a diagnosis. Reina turned to the copy room. "Renji, toner is jammed again, fix it." I glanced at the printer. "That's not my job today." The room stopped moving. The thing about an office is that everyone hears rebellion, even when it is whispered. People ignored unpaid overtime, printer smoke, and Haruto's fake laugh, but the second I said something that was not immediate obedience, heads lifted. One printer beeped into the silence like it wanted no part of this. Reina slowly turned back. "What did you say?" "I wanted to say," I said, "I have rights." I said I am no longer the official office raccoon." What came out was, I can check it after I finish the notes." Yui put a hand over her mouth. Reina walked toward me. Every step was quiet. That was the scary thing about Reina. Cruel people should stomp. Reina glided. She stopped close enough that I could see a tiny silver earring under her hair. You think two women smiling at you in a hallway means your job changed? She asked. My stomach dropped, so she had noticed. Haruto looked amused now. Manager Kurosawa, maybe Sato is having a growth phase. Reina did not look at him, she looked at me. Confidence without value is just noise, she said. Do not be noisy. That line hit. It hit because it sounded like something she had practiced without needing to, a clean knife, no extra words. The old me would have apologized immediately. The new me still wanted to apologize very badly. My apology muscles were strong, Olympic level. But my right hand felt warm in my pocket, and that stupid cashier's smile came back to me like a tiny illegal angel. So I said, I will finish the notes first. I did not say it loudly, I did not say it heroically, but I said it. Reina's face did not change, but her fingers tightened around the folder she was holding. Yui saw that, Haruto saw that. Two people at the nearby desks stopped pretending to type. Reina leaned in. Do not mistake pity for interest, Renji. There was my old wound again, romantic invisibility wrapped in office language. I looked at Haruto, then at Reina. Is that why you keep checking? Yui made a choking sound. One coworker near the printer dropped a stack of blank paper. The sheet slid across the floor like even the office supplies wanted to escape the scene. Haruto's smile vanished. Reina stared at me. For a second, I thought I had died again and gone to a much worse place. Then Reina laughed once, cold short. Cute, she said, you learned one comeback. He shoved the folder into my chest. Her fingers brushed the back of my right hand, the warmth hit again. Reina froze, her eyes lowered to our hands. I did not move. She pulled away and turned her face aside, but I caught the color at the edge of her cheek. It was tiny, it was there. And because I was me, because I had no survival instincts, because one convenience store cashier had apparently turned me into a maniac, I smiled. Reina saw it, her voice dropped. Fix your face. She walked out the room, breast again. Yui rolled her chair near me and whispered, Renji, what? You are going to die, I know, why are you smiling? I looked down at my right hand. Because for 26 years, women had looked through me like I was clear plastic. Now Reina Kurosawa, the most terrifying woman in the building, had looked at me like I was a problem she could not solve. I should have been scared, I was scared. But I was also hungry for more, that was the dangerous part. The first rule of having illegal Rizz should have been obvious, do not test it in public while hungry. I learned that at a ramen shop with 700 yen in my pocket, 2 coins stuck to my palm, and the confidence of a man who had survived one good elevator moment. The shop was narrow, warm and loud, steam rose from the counter. Ticket machine stood by the entrance like a judgmental metal wall. Salarymen lined up behind me, hungry and dead-eyed. The woman behind the counter had her hair tied back and moved fast enough to shame everyone in my department. Reina was not there, Haruto was not there, no office, no copy room, no white jacket, no cold perfume. Just me, noodles, and a right hand that had recently joined organized crime. I told myself I would act normal. Then I put my coins into the wrong slot. Machine beeped at me. The man behind me clicked his tongue. I tried again, the coins came back out. For a second I considered walking out and pretending I had only entered the shop to inspect architecture. And my stomach growled so loudly that the man behind me looked down at it. Betrayed by my own organs. I bent down too fast, hit my head on the machine and heard someone behind me mutter, seriously. Great, perfect, illegal Rizz, and I was still losing to a ramen machine. The waitress came over. Do you need help, she asked. No, I said instantly. Machine rejected my coin again. Yes, I corrected. She smiled politely and reached for the panel. I should have stepped back. Instead, my stupid brain said, maybe just one harmless test. Her fingers brushed my right hand when I handed her the coin. The change in her face was immediate but small. Her polite smile softened into something warmer. Oh, she said, you're nervous. I laughed too loudly, only around technology. Salaryman behind me sighed. The waitress leaned closer to the ticket machine, but her shoulder nearly touched mine. Here, she said, this one is the cheaper set, it comes with extra egg today. Extra egg? No woman had ever given me extra anything except work. Thank you, I said too emotionally. She laughed. The salaryman behind me said, can you flirt after ordering? I turned so fast I nearly knocked over the umbrella stand. I'm not flirting. The waitress looked embarrassed, he's not. That made it worse. The salaryman's eyebrows rose, 2 other customers looked over, the ramen cook glanced up from the steam. My face went hot. I'll take the cheap set, I said. The waitress pressed the button for me, the ticket dropped. I grabbed it upside down, bowed, hit my shoulder on the machine and stumbled toward the counter. A little boy at the corner table watched me with the calm disappointment of a child realizing adults were fake. The man behind me whispered, unbelievable. I wanted to tell him that I was under medical and supernatural pressure. Instead, I bowed to the ticket machine. Not to the waitress, not to the customers, the machine. The waitress covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. The little boy did not even try. He pointed at me and whispered something to his mother, and his mother whispered back while looking directly at my shoes. I had received female attention for less than a week, and somehow I had already become a cautionary tale for children. I sat with my ticket in both hands and stared at it like it contained national secrets. The waitress brought my ramen later with the extra egg on top. Careful, she said, it's hot. I nodded like she had saved my life. A normal man would have eaten calmly, a smooth man would have said something charming. Haruto would have looked up with his clean smile and said, "Thank you," in a voice that probably had a business class upgrade. I slurped too early and burned my tongue. The waitress saw, her hand flew to her mouth. "Are you okay?" I nodded while my eyes watered, perfect, delicious pain. She laughed again. Customers near me stared again. I realized then that attention was not simple. When you had lived invisible for 26 years, attention felt like standing under a spotlight after learning your pants were unzipped. I liked it, I hated it, I wanted more, I wanted to crawl under the counter. Halfway through the bowl my phone buzzed. It was the office group chat. Haruto had sent a message. "Drinks tomorrow, team morale." Manager Kurosawa approved. Below it, Rene had replied with one word, "Fine." My stomach dropped in a way hot soup could not explain. Waitress noticed my face. "Bad news." "No," I said, "just work." He tilted her head. "Strict boss." I almost laughed. "You have no idea." He smiled again, softer this time, and walked away. I looked down at my right hand. The gift had made a cashier smile, a commuter pause, a waitress give me extra egg. Tiny things, stupid things, things most men would forget before the train ride home. To me, they felt like someone had opened a window in a room I had been locked in since middle school. And Rene's name on my phone pulled the window half shut. The next night would put me back at a table with her, Haruto, Yui, and enough alcohol to make people honest or cruel, usually both. I finished my ramen, wiped my mouth, and stood. Waitress waved from behind the counter. I waved back with my left hand. Then I remembered, smiled like an idiot, and changed to my right. He smiled brighter. Salaryman behind me groaned. I walked out into the night with a burned tongue, an upside-down ramen ticket in my pocket, and the dangerous feeling that maybe life had finally become interesting. The izakaya was too loud, too warm, and too full of people pretending work was a family. I hated company drinking nights. At the office, at least everyone admitted the building owned us. At an izakaya, people loosened their ties and acted like we were all friends while still ranking each other by salary, face, and how close they sat to Rene. Haruto sat beside her, of course. I sat near the end of the table beside Yui and the wall. The wall was my usual social position. Rene wore a black blouse instead of her office jacket. That somehow made her look more dangerous. Less manager, more knife with earrings. She held a glass of highball and listened while Haruto told a story about a client complimenting his presentation. Everyone laughed at the right places. Haruto glanced at me. "Renji helped with the notes too," he said, like a rich man donating crumbs, quietly. Rene smiled into her glass. "That is his specialty," she said, "quiet things." Few people laughed. Yui did not. I took a sip of beer. It tasted cheap, bitter, and personal. Rene looked at me over the rim of her glass. "Do not sulk," she said, "it makes you look even poorer." Haruto made a small sound like he was trying not to laugh. Rene did not need him to laugh. She only needed him sitting beside her, clean and bright, proving her point without saying anything. That one got a bigger laugh. My fingers tightened around the glass. Yui leaned toward me and muttered, "You can leave." I paid for the set course. That is the saddest reason to stay. She already insulted me. I need to eat enough chicken to financially recover. Yui snorted into her drink. Across the table, Rene's eyes flicked to Yui laughing beside me. It was quick, but I caught it. I was getting better at catching small things, maybe because my entire life had trained me to survive on crumbs. The waitress came with fried chicken and edamame. She leaned between chairs to set down the plate. Someone bumped her elbow, the dish tilted. I reached out automatically, right hand. Her fingers brushed mine. She looked at me, her irritation vanished, her face warmed. "Oh, thank you," she said, "that would have been bad." "It's okay," I said. For once I sounded almost normal. Then she smiled at me longer than necessary. At the end of the table, Rene placed her glass down, not hard, just carefully. The sound still cut through the noise. Haruto noticed too. He laughed. "Sato, are you making friends with the staff now?" I should have shrugged. Instead, because beer and illegal Rizz had filled my empty skull with fake courage, I said, "I caught a plate." Haruto smiled, heroic. Rene leaned back. "You are very proud of small things lately," she said. The table quieted just enough. I looked at her. Small things are what I can afford. Yui turned her face away, but I saw her shoulders shake. Few coworkers laughed for real this time. Not at me. With me, that tiny difference hit harder than beer. Rene's smile sharpened. "You think that was clever?" "No," I said, "I think it was true." Haruto's eyes narrowed. For the first time that night, he looked at me without the lazy confidence of a man looking down from a balcony. He looked at me like I had stepped onto the stairs. The waitress returned with more glasses. She placed mine down first. "Careful," she said softly. Rene looked at the waitress, then at me. Her voice changed. "Do you do this often?" I blinked. "Drink. Collect pity from women doing their jobs." The table went quiet. Rene looked at the waitress, then back at me. "When a woman is paid to be kind, Renji," she said, "you do not get to count that as romantic progress." There was the line, clean, direct, ugly. I felt it land in the same place her insults always landed. The old place, the place that believed her. Before I could answer, Yui set her chopsticks down. "Manager Kurosawa," Yui said, "that was unnecessary." Rene did not look at her. "I am warning him, men like Renji embarrass themselves when they mistake service for interest." Yui's jaw tightened. Haruto gave a soft laugh. Let's not make it serious. Of course he said that men like Haruto loved not serious when the knife was not in them. I stared at the condensation on my beer glass. My right hand rested under the table. The gift buzzed in my life like a stupid miracle, but Riene's words still hurt because part of me believed she knew the real me. The broke me, the ignored me, the guy who got excited because a waitress smiled. Then I remembered the ramen shop, the commuter, the convenience store cashier. The way Riene froze in the copy room, the way her eyes followed my hand and then hated me for it. I lifted my head. Maybe, I said. Everyone looked at me. I swallowed. Maybe I embarrass myself sometimes. Riene's eyes narrowed. But I would rather embarrass myself by getting happy over a smile than spend my whole night watching someone else get one. Table froze. It was not a perfect comeback. It was not smooth. My voice cracked near the end. My ears burned so hot I could have cooked yakitori on them. But it landed. The waitress stopped moving near the next table. Yui stared at me like I had grown a second head. Haruto looked at Riene. Riene looked at me. Her smile stayed in place. Her eyes did not. For the first time that night, she had no instant insult ready. I drank the rest of my cheap beer too fast and nearly choked. Though yes, the moment was powerful, but still very much me. The next morning, I woke up with a headache, a dry mouth, and the memory of my own sentence attacking me from the inside. I would rather embarrass myself by getting happy over a smile than spend my whole night watching someone else get one. Who said that? Apparently me, a man who once apologized to a vending machine for pressing the wrong button. At work, I expected Riene to destroy me. She did not. That was worse. She ignored me for half the day. Riene, ignoring you was not peace. It was weather before a storm. The air around her desk felt expensive and dangerous. Haruto made up for it. He passed my desk around 11 and leaned down slightly. Brave speech last night, he said. I looked at my screen. Thanks, I mean it. Very emotional. That word again, emotional. Men like Haruto used it when they meant weak but wanted to sound clean. He smiled. Just be careful with Manager Kurosawa. She dislikes messy men. Then why does she keep you around? Yui said from her desk. I coughed. Haruto's smile twitched. Yui did not look up from her keyboard. The woman had timing like a sniper. At lunch, Yui dragged me out. You need air, she said. I need a new identity. You need both. She led me away from the office district, past a stationery shop, past 2 bakeries I could not afford, and into a narrow street with nicer restaurants than my pants deserved. Why are we here? I asked. Reservation mix-up, Yui said. My sister's friend owns a place. She needs someone to pick up a form because her printer hates her. Why me? You looked like you would spend lunch hiding in the stairwell. I like stairs. You like avoiding people. That too. The restaurant had a dark wooden door and a small sign that read Shijo Table. Inside, it smelled like coffee, grilled fish, and money that knew how to dress casually. I immediately checked my shoes. They looked like they had followed me through several bad decisions. A woman behind the counter looked up. She was stylish in a quiet way, not like Riene, who could make a hallway feel like a fashion shoot and an execution. This woman had soft waves in her hair, a cream blouse, and calm eyes that seemed to notice details without stabbing them. Yui waved. Misaki Shijo smiled. Yui, you came. This is Renji, Yui said. He carries things, panics, and sometimes says something useful by accident. Thank you for the honest introduction, I said. Misaki laughed, a normal laugh, warm, adult. I almost bowed into a chair. Misaki reached across the counter with a small envelope. Could you sign here as pickup confirmation? She asked. Yui nudged me. You do it. I need to call my sister. Why do I sign? Because your handwriting is less violent. He stepped aside and took out her phone. I held the pen in my left hand, safe. Then Misaki turned the form slightly. Her fingers brushed my right hand where it rested on the counter. Warmth moved through my palm. Misaki paused, her eyes lifted. The restaurant noise softened around me. She did not giggle, she did not blush like an anime girl hit by weather. She simply looked at me more carefully, as if I had become interesting in a way I was not prepared for. You look tired, Misaki said. I get that a lot, but not empty, she said. That hit me strangely. People had called me cheap, awkward, invisible, pitiful, quiet, useful, replaceable. No one had ever looked at my face and decided tired was not the whole story. I looked down at the form before my expression betrayed me. I'm mostly caffeine and fear, I said. Misaki smiled. That still counts as something. Yui ended her call and looked between us. Her eyebrows rose again. I wanted to kick her. Misaki gave us iced tea on the house because it was hot outside. The tea came in tall glasses with actual mint leaves. I looked at mine like it might charge rent. When Yui went to the restroom, Misaki leaned slightly closer. Are you free this weekend? She asked. My body forgot how to be seated. I'm sorry. I have a small evening event, Misaki said. Nothing fancy. A friend canceled last minute. Yui said you are good at fixing small problems quietly. Of course Yui said that. Yui saw through my shame and weaponized it for networking. I am very good at small problems, I said. Large problems defeat me, Misaki smiled. Then start with small ones. I wanted to say yes immediately. Then Riene's voice crawled out of the back of my head. Men like Renji embarrass themselves when they mistake service for interest. My throat tightened. Misaki noticed. You do not have to answer now, she said. No, I said too fast. I mean yes, I mean I can help. Yui returned and looked at my face. Oh no, she said. What did he agree to? A weekend event, Misaki said. Yui looked at me. Renji, what? You look like a stray cat someone invited inside. That is rude. It is accurate. Misaki laughed again. I should have felt humiliated. Instead, I felt seen. Not by Riene, not through her cold judgment, not through Haruto's clean smile. Here, in a place where Riene was not standing over my shoulder, someone had treated me like a man with a use, a voice, and maybe even a little room to grow. When I walked out of Shijo table, the sunlight looked different. That was dangerous too. Because once a man like me got one glimpse of a door, he started wondering why he had spent so long sitting outside it. Back at the office, I tried to hide the Shijo table envelope under my keyboard. That lasted until Haruto walked by. He saw the restaurant logo before I could cover it, and his clean smile appeared a little too slowly. Shijo table, Haruto asked. That place is hard to get into. I pushed the envelope under a notebook. Yui asked me to pick something up. For Yui, he said. I hated the way he repeated it. He made 3 normal words sound like a background check. Haruto tapped one finger against my desk. Careful, Sato, nice restaurants can make people forget what level they are. Then he walked away. It was a small line, casual, almost polite. But I saw him glance toward Riene's office before he turned the corner. 2 days after Misaki invited me to help at her event, I went to the laundromat with dirty clothes, a cheap detergent bottle, and the confidence of a man who had been called not empty by a stylish restaurant owner. That confidence lasted 4 minutes. The laundromat near my apartment had 6 machines, 2 cracked plastic chairs, a vending machine that stole coins, and a television no one watched. Rain tapped against the front window. My entire wardrobe spun inside machine number 3 like evidence from a low-income crime scene. Yui showed up carrying supermarket bags. I looked at her. Do you follow me now? This is my neighborhood too, she said. That sounds convenient for the plot of my suffering. She set her bags down. You look smug. I do laundry with dignity. You put your whites and darks together. Dignity is flexible. She sighed and sat beside me. A woman around our age entered with a basket full of towels. She wore a green cardigan and looked exhausted in the way people look exhausted when life charges rent twice. One towel slipped from her basket. I bent down to pick it up. She reached at the same time. Her fingers brushed my right hand. The warmth hit. She looked at me. Her tired face softened. Thank you, she said. No problem, I said, trying not to smile like a criminal. Yui watched me. I ignored her because I was an idiot. The woman with the towels smiled again. You live nearby. Yeah, I said, 3rd building from the corner, the one with the bicycle that looks abandoned but legally is. She laughed. Yui whispered, Renji. I whispered back, what? You are doing the face. What face? The face of a starving dog who found a steak. I straightened immediately. The woman with the towels tilted her head. Are you okay? Yes, I said, my friend insults me for health reasons. Yui nodded. Preventive care. The woman laughed again. For a few seconds it felt harmless, nice even. I was a man in a laundromat making someone laugh. No office, no Riene, no Haruto, no ranking system. Just spinning clothes and a warm little miracle in my palm. Then my washing machine beeped. I jumped up too fast. My elbow hit Yui's supermarket bag. Apples rolled across the floor. One hit the vending machine, another rolled under a dryer. The towel woman tried to help. I tried to help. Yui tried to stop both of us from making it worse. In the chaos, I grabbed the wrong laundry basket. The towel woman grabbed mine. A middle-aged man entered, saw me holding a basket of pastel towels, and stared at me like he had caught me stealing a family. Yui bent down, picked up an apple, and said, This is what happens when you let one compliment drive the car. I had it under control, I said. A pair of my old boxer briefs fell out of the towel woman's basket onto the floor. No one moved. The boxer briefs had a tiny cartoon raccoon on them. I had bought them during a sale and lived with the shame privately. The laundromat became too quiet. The towel woman stared at the floor. Yui pressed both hands over her mouth. I closed my eyes. That is not mine, I said. Yui made a strangled noise. The towel woman blinked. It came from your basket. Then legally it may be mine. The middle-aged man turned around and walked back out into the rain. Smart man. The towel woman started laughing. Not a polite laugh, a real one. Yui broke too. Soon I was standing in a laundromat holding someone else's towels while 2 women laughed at my raccoon underwear. I expected the old shame to crush me. It came, but it did not win immediately. That was new. Maybe because no one was using the laugh like a weapon. Maybe because Yui had one hand on the washing machine and was laughing so hard she had to bend over. Maybe because the towel woman kept saying sorry, while clearly not being sorry at all. The vending machine hummed beside us. The washing machine spun like they wanted to clap. For once the room laughed and I did not feel like I had been kicked. It should have crushed me. A month ago it would have. But the towel woman laughed without cruelty. Yui laughed like she was relieved I was alive. The room felt embarrassing but not mean. I picked up the underwear, shoved it into my basket and bowed. Please forget this animal. No, Yui said, the raccoon stays in history. The towel woman smiled. At least it's cute. I almost said thank you. Then I remembered we were discussing my underwear and shut up. After we sorted the laundry and rescued Yui's apples, the towel woman realized she had left her wallet at home. She looked genuinely upset, staring at the machine and the wet towels in her basket. I could have played the moment. I could have leaned into the attention. The old hunger in me wanted to. Whispered, be charming, be impressive, be chosen. Instead, I paid for her wash with my last coins. It was not heroic, it was 500 yen, my bank account did not enjoy the gesture. The towel woman looked at me, are you sure? Yeah, I said, the raccoon incident already ruined my dignity, might as well use the rest of the day for charity. She smiled softer now, Yui watched me differently. Outside, under the laundromat awning, Yui handed me one of her apples. You know, she said, when you stop trying to look cool you are almost decent. That is the kindest insult anyone has ever given me, I mean it. I looked at the apple in my hand, being noticed felt amazing, it felt like oxygen after years underwater. But this felt different, the towel woman had smiled because of my hand. Yui looked at me because of what I did after, that difference bothered me more than I expected. Then my phone buzzed. Haruto had posted a photo in the office chat. He was at some sleek lounge with 2 clients, smiling like a man born in good lighting. His caption read, some people network, some people carry laundry. I stared at it, Yui saw the screen and rolled her eyes. Do not answer, she said, I wasn't going to. I was absolutely going to. My thumb was already hovering over the screen with the emotional maturity of a raccoon near garbage. Another message appeared, Haruto, group hangout tomorrow, arcade and karaoke, Renji should come, we need entertainment. Then Rine reacted with a thumbs up. My stomach tightened, Yui's expression changed. That is not a hangout, she said. No, I said, it was a setup. And for once I could see the trap before I walked into it. I still knew I would go because I was Renji Sato. A dumb gift had entered my life, and apparently I had decided to test every possible way it could ruin me. The arcade was bright enough to erase sleep and loud enough to hide murder. It was also exactly the kind of place where adults could pretend they were not forming a social execution circle around one exhausted office worker. Machines flashed red, blue, green, claw games blinked, rhythm game drums cracked in the corner, a karaoke counter glowed beyond the prize machines. Coworkers gathered in small groups, laughing too loudly because everyone wanted to pretend this was casual. It was not casual, Haruto had built the night like a stage. Rine stood beside him in a black coat, hair loose over one shoulder, looking so good it felt like a personal attack. She held a small paper cup of coffee from the arcade stand and watched me enter. He did not smile, Haruto did. Renji, he called, you made it, I was worried the laundromat had booked you. Few coworkers laughed, I kept my hands in my jacket pockets. Yui stood near the claw machines, arms folded, she had come because she did not trust them, smart woman. Nice place, I said. Haruto spread his arms, relax, we're just having fun. When someone says relax before anything has happened, something is about to happen. A woman from another department waved us toward a claw machine filled with plush cats. Let's compete, winner gives the prize to someone. Haruto went first, of course he did. He moved with easy confidence, tapped the joystick and lifted a small white cat on his second try. People clapped, he handed it to Rine with a little bow. Rine accepted it, glanced at me and said, see, smooth. There was the comparison, smooth, clean, correct, everything I was not. My turn came, I stepped up to the machine. The joystick was sticky, the claw looked drunk, my right hand stayed in my pocket because I had learned at least one thing in life. A woman from accounting leaned beside me, you can use both hands, you know. I laughed too hard, I am challenging myself. Haruto smiled, always choosing the difficult path. Rine sipped her coffee, no, he chooses the awkward one and calls it difficult. That got a laugh, I pushed the button with my left hand. The claw descended, missed the plush cat entirely and grabbed empty air. The crowd groaned, Haruto placed one hand on his chest like he had witnessed tragedy. Beautiful, he said, performance art. I wanted to crawl into the prize chute. The accounting woman stepped closer and reached across to show me the angle. Her fingers brushed my right wrist where my hand had slipped from my pocket. Warmth, she paused, her eyes moved from the machine to me. You're not bad, she said softly, you're just nervous. The laughter around us thinned, I pulled my hand back too fast, that made it worse. Rine saw the whole thing, her eyes sharpened. Haruto saw Rine seeing it, his smile tightened, the trap changed shape. Haruto clapped his hands. You know what, let's help Sato out, anyone else want to coach him, he seems very popular with coaching lately. Few people laughed again but not all. Rine stepped forward, careful, she said, voice smooth. Renji mistakes basic kindness for interest, do not encourage him too much. The accounting woman frowned, I was just helping. Rine gave her a perfect smile, exactly, the word landed ugly. Yui pushed off the claw machine. Manager Kurosawa, Rine turned. Yes, you invited him here to relax or to bleed him slowly. The arcade noise kept going around us but our group went still. Haruto laughed. Yui, that's dramatic. No, Yui said, dramatic is setting up a group hangout so you can make one guy look desperate for women. My face heated, part of me wanted to thank her, part of me wanted the floor to open. Rine's smile stayed in place. You are overprotective, she told Yui. Renji is an adult, if he acts embarrassing in public people will notice. Then she looked at me, and he has been very noticeable lately. The line should have sounded like criticism, it did not, it came out too sharp, too personal, too close to jealousy. That was the strange thing about Rine, when she insulted me before it felt like she was kicking a box in a hallway. Now it felt like she was kicking the box because someone else had picked it up. Even Haruto glanced at her, I felt the room shift, not fully, not enough to save me, but enough that the joke was no longer clean. Haruto needed control back, He grabbed a microphone from the karaoke counter where someone had been joking around. "Let's vote," he said. "Who thinks Sato should show us his new confidence with a song?" "No," I said immediately. That made people laugh. Haruto held the microphone toward me. "Come on, you had a lot to say at the izakaya." Reina tilted her head, or was that only because the waitress smiled? The old wound opened again. I looked at the microphone, then at the group. No one needed a camera for it to hurt, just coworkers, colored lights, prize machines, and enough eyes to make a man feel 12 years old. I could have taken the microphone and tried to be funny. I could have touched someone's hand and hoped the room softened. Instead, I stepped back. "No," I said again. Haruto's smile grew scared. "Yes," I said. That stopped him. I looked at Riene. "I am scared, I am awkward, I am broke. I get happy when people are nice to me because it does not happen often." The words came out before I could make them prettier. The group went quiet. That quiet cost me. I saw two coworkers look away, not because they hated me but because honest discomfort is hard to stand beside. The accounting woman stepped back from the claw machine. Haruto noticed that and smiled like he had finally drawn blood. I continued because apparently my mouth had filed for independence. "But you two keep acting like that is the disgusting part, it is not." Riene's eyes widened slightly. I swallowed. "The disgusting part is how much effort you spend making sure I stay that way." Yui stared at me. The accounting woman looked down. Haruto laughed half a second too late. "Wow, heavy." Riene's fingers tightened around the plush cat Haruto had given her. He looked beautiful, cold, and furious. For a moment I thought she would slap me with the stuffed animal. Honestly, I would have respected the originality. Instead, she stepped closer. "Do not flatter yourself," Riene said. "No one is trying to keep you anywhere." I looked at the plush cat crushed in her hand. "Then why are you holding on so hard?" Her eyes dropped to the cat. Everyone saw it. That was the first time the room looked at Riene instead of me, not because she had shouted, not because I had proved anything. Because her hand had betrayed her before her mouth could clean it up. The plush cat's head was bent sideways in her grip. A stupid arcade prize became the most honest thing in the room. Everyone saw it. She loosened her grip too late. I left before my knees could give out. Outside the arcade, the night air hit my face. I leaned against the wall and breathed like I had outrun a train. Yui followed me. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I said. "Good answer." My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. It was Misaki. "Yui gave me your number. If you still want to help this weekend, come by Saturday at 5. No singing required." I laughed once. It hurt, but it was real. I looked back through the arcade window. Riene stood under the neon lights, still holding the plush cat, watching the door I had walked through. For once I had left before she dismissed me. That was not victory yet, but it was the first time the old leash had failed to pull. Misaki's restaurant looked different on event night. The tables had been rearranged. Small candles sat near the windows. Staff moved in tight paths between the counter and the kitchen. Guests arrived in clean coats, soft scarves, and shoes that cost more than everything in my laundry basket combined. I stood near the back wearing a borrowed black apron and an event pass that said staff in white letters. I touched the pass 3 times, not because it was important, because it was mine for the night. Misaki found me staring at it. "You look like the badge might explode," she said. "It might reject me. It is laminated paper. I have been rejected by less." She smiled. "Then start with these receipts." She placed a stack of order slips in my left hand. I had promised myself I would be responsible. No showing off, no dumb testing. No standing around like my right hand was a holy relic from a suspicious shrine. Then the first guest arrived and reached for the welcome card. Her fingers touched mine. Warmth. She paused and smiled. "Thank you," she said, looking at my face longer than expected. I nearly dropped the entire stack of cards. Misaki saw from behind the counter. Her eyebrow lifted. I turned away, walked into a chair, apologized to the chair, and kept moving. That was the first 10 minutes. The next hour became a disaster with good lighting. That was basically my new genre. A woman dropped her scarf. I picked it up with the wrong hand. She smiled and asked if I worked there often. The guest asked where the restroom was. I pointed left while saying right. She laughed like that was charming instead of evidence of brain damage. A tray of water glasses started sliding off a side table. I caught it, but a woman's hand landed over mine at the same time. She looked at me like I had saved her family line. I whispered, "Please do not reward me emotionally. I am at work." She laughed. I had never been so tired from being liked. At the office, being ignored had been exhausting in a slow way. This was exhausting, like sprinting through a market while everyone handed you fragile glass. Every smile felt good for half a second, then turned into a new thing I could drop. The gift was not smooth. It did not turn me into Haruto. It turned me into a man juggling flaming attention while trying not to spill sparkling water on rich people. Haruto would have made this look easy. He would have charmed the guests, remembered every name, and probably made the apron look intentional. I looked like I had been hired by accident and kept around because the mistake was funny. Still, I was moving. That mattered. At one point, a guest at the window table complained that his reservation had been moved. The staff near the counter looked at Misaki. Misaki was already handling another guest, so she glanced at me once. That glance was not magic, it was worse, trust. I checked the seating list, found the duplicate name, moved 2 chairs, and apologized before the guest could get louder. My hands shook the whole time, but the guest sat down. Misaki gave me a quick nod from across the room. That nod felt cleaner than a smile. Later, I carried 3 plates toward a side table and a guest asked, "Are you new?" I said painfully. She laughed. I almost thanked her for laughing, which would have ruined the laugh, so I kept walking like a man carrying both dinner and national security. He smiled. I walked into the wrong section. Misaki intercepted me before I served grilled fish to a table that had ordered dessert. "This way," she said, touching my elbow, not my hand. Good. Her face stayed normal, also good. "You are doing fine," Misaki said. "I almost gave fish to cake people." Fine includes almost, that is generous. "You recover quickly," she said. "Most people pretend they did not make a mistake. You announce it with your whole body." That sounds terrible. It is useful. People trust panic when it is honest. No one had ever called my panic useful. Most people treated my panic like a leak they had to step around. Reina treated it like proof I belonged at the bottom. Misaki said it like she had found a tool in a messy drawer. I did not know what to do with that, so I carried the plates correctly and nearly cried into the garnish. By the second hour, the event had a rhythm. I ran receipts, fixed seating mistakes, brought napkins, carried bags, and apologized when needed. The gift kept causing small problems, but I stopped chasing each reaction. There were too many. If I followed every smile, I would die under a pile of coats. At some point, Misaki handed me a box of extra candles. "Back room," she said, "top shelf." I carried the box down the hallway and heard 2 guests whisper near the restroom. "That guy is cute," one said. "Awkward cute," the other said. I froze behind the corner. Cute again. My heart jumped. Then the box slipped. Candles rolled across the floor. One bounced into the hallway and stopped at a pair of black heels. I knew those heels. My stomach dropped before I looked up. Reina Kurosawa stood at the end of the hallway with Haruto beside her. Of course she looked perfect, black coat, red lips, calm eyes. She stood at the end of the hallway like she had owned that space for years. Haruto held a reservation card. Reina looked down at the candle by her shoe. Then at me, then at the staff pass on my chest. Her expression did not change at first. That was how I knew it was bad. Haruto smiled slowly. "Sato," he said, "you work here now." "No," I said, "helping." Reina looked past me toward the dining room where Misaki was laughing with a guest. "Helping," Reina repeated, one word, enough poison to clean a bathroom. Misaki appeared behind me. "Renji," she said, "everything okay?" Reina's eyes moved to Misaki. Misaki stood beside me, calm and warm and not afraid of Reina's beauty. For the first time, I saw Reina in a room where she did not automatically own the air, and she hated it. Haruto held up the reservation card. "We had a booking under Mikami." Misaki smiled politely. "Of course, this way." Reina did not move. Her gaze dropped again to my staff pass. "You are full of surprises lately," she said. I picked up the fallen candles one by one because my hands needed something to do. "Mostly bad ones," I said. Misaki looked at me with a small smile. Reina saw that too. Her jaw tightened. The night had been chaotic before. Now it became dangerous. Because Reina had entered the one room where Renji Sato was starting to look useful without her permission. Reina did not explode immediately. That would have been too simple. If Reina had shouted, everyone would have understood what she was doing. She was smarter than that. She waited until I had a tray in my hand, guests near me, Misaki across the room, and just enough attention on me for one quiet sentence to cut properly. Reina did not waste beauty on sloppy anger. She let it sit behind her eyes until the room felt it before she moved. She sat with Haruto at a center table, accepted water from Misaki, and smiled like a guest who had never insulted anyone in her life. The restaurant lights made her look softer. That annoyed me. Some people should not be allowed warm lighting. I kept working. That was the plan. Work, carry plates. Avoid hand contact. Do not trip. Do not let Reina see that her presence made my lungs forget their job. For 20 minutes it almost worked. Then a woman at table 3 reached for her dropped napkin at the same time I did. Our hands touched. She looked up and smiled at me. "Thank you, Renji," she said. She had read my name from the staff pass. Across the room, Reina's fork stopped halfway to her plate. Haruto noticed her noticing. Misaki noticed all of us. The room did not know a drama was forming yet, but it could feel the temperature change. Reina dabbed her mouth with a napkin and stood. Haruto stood too, because men like Haruto sensed when an audience might appear. Reina walked toward me while I carried a tray of empty glasses. "Renji," she said. I stopped. "Yes." Her smile was perfect. "That was bad." "You should be careful," Reina said. "People here are being kind because this is Misaki's event. Do not embarrass yourself by misunderstanding that." The words were quiet, but 2 nearby tables heard them. My hand tightened around the tray. Misaki stepped closer from the counter. "Is there a problem?" Misaki asked. Reina turned to her with the cleanest, polite smile I had ever seen. "No problem. I manage him at work. I know how carried away he gets when people are nice to him." There it was, not shouting, not screaming. Worse, a social knife wrapped in concern. Haruto added, "Sato means well, he is just inexperienced." The word hit the room softly and spread. Inexperienced. It was not technically a dirty word. That made it dirtier. Reina knew how to choose words that sounded clean while dragging your face across the floor. I hated that word more than I expected. It made me sound like a child touching hot stoves and calling it romance. A few guests glanced at me. One woman at table 3 lowered her glass. A man near the window stopped mid-conversation. A staff member carrying bread slowed down, then kept moving with the tray held too carefully. That was the worst kind of attention, not loud, not dramatic. Just enough people hearing the ugliest part of me described by the most beautiful woman in the room. Yui had arrived earlier to help with coats. She stood near the entrance, watching with murder in her eyes. Misaki set down the menu she was holding. That is an odd thing to say about someone helping my event, Misaki said. Riene looked at me, then back at Misaki. Then you have not had to manage his expectations. My face burned. Haruto smiled like he was sad for me. Riene continued, a man who has never been noticed can become messy when attention finally reaches him. Silence. There it was, the real wound dragged into a restaurant full of strangers. Few months ago that would have ended me, a few days ago maybe. My first instinct was still to apologize, to shrink. To say, sorry, Manager Kurosawa, sorry for existing near attention, sorry for being a man in public with a face. Misaki spoke first. Manager Kurosawa, she said, voice calm, why are you tracking how much attention he receives? Question landed like a glass dropped on tile. Ine blinked, Haruto's smile thinned. Misaki did not look angry, that made it stronger. Yui stepped forward from the entrance. Yeah, Yui said, you say he is nothing but you keep taking inventory. Guest at table 3 lowered her glass. Someone whispered, is she his boss? I felt the room turn slightly, not against Riene completely, not yet, but toward the question. Riene's smile tightened. Do not make this dramatic, she said. Yui laughed once. You followed him across a restaurant to tell another woman not to be nice to him. I did not follow him. You stood up when she said his name. Haruto stepped in. Yui, that is enough. No, Misaki said, it is not. Haruto looked at Misaki like he expected her to remember he was handsome and stopped disagreeing. She did not. Riene's hand moved to her glass on the nearest table. She did not drink, she just touched it, fingers stiff. I am preventing a misunderstanding, Riene said. The room was quiet enough that the kitchen bell sounded too loud. I looked at Riene, she was still gorgeous. Still sharp, still the woman who had made me feel like a stain on the floor. But under the lights of Misaki's restaurant with guests watching and Yui standing beside the door, Riene did not look untouchable. She looked bothered, that was new. And because I was still Renji, my voice came out before my courage fully arrived. Manager Kurosawa, I said, you keep saying I misunderstand attention. She looked at me, I held the tray with both hands because one of them was shaking. But you are the only person here who keeps reacting to it. Small sound moved through the room, not a gasp, a shift. The kind of quiet that happens when people finally hear the line everyone had been waiting for. Riene's face went still. Haruto said, that is inappropriate. Yui looked at him, so was half your personality tonight. Someone at the side table coughed to hide a laugh. Haruto's ears turned pink. Riene looked at me like she wanted to cut me down in 3 different languages, but she could not find a clean way to do it anymore. That was the beginning of her collapse, not because I had proof, not because I exposed anything. Because she had spent years making me small, and now everyone could see how hard she was working to keep me there. Riene had always looked powerful when she stood over me in the office. In Misaki's restaurant, surrounded by people who did not owe her obedience, that same posture looked different. It looked needy. That was worse for her than any argument I could have made. Riene did not break in the dining room, she was too proud for that. Instead she turned away with a smile so tight it looked painful and said, Renji, outside now. The old me would have followed before she finished the sentence. The old me had followed for less, a raised eyebrow, a snapped finger, my name spoken like a stain. The new me stood still. Misaki looked at me, Yui looked at me. Haruto looked at me like he wanted me to obey so the world would make sense again. I set the tray down. My hands wanted to apologize, that sounds strange but it is true. When people have fight or flight I had bow and say sorry. My shoulders tried to fold before my mouth even opened. I forced them back down. I can talk near the entrance, I said, I am still helping here. Ine's eyes narrowed, it was a small refusal. But small refusals matter when you have spent your life saying yes before anyone asks. We stepped into the short hallway near the restaurant entrance. The city lights showed through the glass door. Rain had started outside, turning the sidewalk silver. Rene stood close enough that I could smell her perfume again. Cold flowers, clean paper, expensive danger. Haruto hovered near the hallway entrance. Yui and Misaki stayed in view from the dining room, not close enough to hear everything but close enough that I was not alone. Riene spoke first. What do you think you are doing? Her voice was low. Outside the hallway, forks clicked against plates and rain tapped the glass door. Inside my chest, my heart acted like it had been hired to escape. I tried to answer casually, helping an event. Do not play stupid, I am not playing. Then stop acting like this is you. That hurt more than I wanted. I looked at her. What does that mean? Riene folded her arms. This little performance, the sudden confidence, the women smiling, the way you keep pretending you belong in rooms you barely understand. There it was, the full version. He had seen pieces, heard pieces, collected them. Maybe from Haruto, maybe from coworkers, maybe from her own eyes because she looked more than she admitted. I swallowed. I did not know you were keeping score. I manage people. No, I said, you manage ranks, people are messier. Her eyes flashed. For 1 second I enjoyed that too much, then she stepped closer. Renji, Riene said slower now, almost softer, you are going to embarrass yourself badly. Misaki is being kind because this is her place. Yui is defending you because she likes broken things. These women you keep smiling at are not choosing you. They are reacting to a mood, a moment, a mistake. Then she looked me over from my borrowed staff pass to my old shoes. Do not confuse being useful for one night with becoming someone women want. My right hand twitched inside my pocket. She did not know, she did not need to. The ugly part was that some of what she said touched my fear. Maybe they were reacting to a moment, maybe I was lucky, maybe the gift made everything fake. Maybe I was still the same broke man with a cheap bag and raccoon underwear, standing in borrowed confidence like it was a suit too big for him. Renee saw the hesitation. Her expression softened just enough to become more dangerous. Come back under my team properly, she said. Stop making a spectacle of yourself. I can keep Haruto from making this worse. I stared at her. There it was, not an apology, ownership-wearing concern. You can keep Haruto from making it worse, I asked. Yes, after helping him make it worse. Her lips pressed together. Haruto shifted at the hallway entrance. Careful, he said. I looked at him. You too, he straightened. You are getting carried away because a restaurant owner is being nice to you, Haruto said. This is exactly what manager Kurosawa means. Yui's voice came from the dining room. Haruto, every time you talk you prove her point and lose yours. Misaki did not laugh, she just watched. Riene turned sharply. This has nothing to do with you, Yui. Yui stepped closer. It does when you use work rank to humiliate someone outside work. Riene's control cracked for one visible second. Her eyes moved from Yui to Misaki, then back to me. She realized the room had followed, not fully, not loudly, but enough. The old method was failing because the old room was gone. She reached toward my sleeve, not my hand, my sleeve. Still I stepped back. The movement was small, it hit her harder than a shout. Riene's hand stopped in the air. I looked at it, then at her face. For years I would have leaned toward any attention from her. Insult, order, correction, cold glance, anything. If Riene looked at me, I felt real for half a second, even if she was making me hate myself. That was the ugliest truth of my life. I had hated Riene, wanted Riene, feared Riene, and waited for Riene, sometimes in the same minute. When she cut me down, at least she had chosen me as the target. That is how low I had been. That was the pathetic part. That was the part I had to cut. You told me women only smile at me because they are polite, I said. Riene said nothing. You told me I make Haruto look like he is doing charity. Haruto looked away. You told me confidence makes my disappointment easier to see. My voice shook at that line. I let it. But every time someone treats me like I am not trash, you show up acting like I stole something from you. Riene's jaw tightened. I breathed once. I do not know what I am becoming, I said. I am probably still embarrassing. I am definitely still broke, and I am not suddenly smooth. I nearly lost a fight to a ramen ticket machine yesterday. Yui made a tiny sound behind me, maybe a laugh, maybe pain. I kept going. But I am done letting you be the person who tells me what I am allowed to feel when someone is kind to me. The hallway went quiet. Riene stared at me. For the first time since I had known her, she looked like she wanted to say something and could not choose a version that kept her pride safe. So she chose the old weapon. Renji, she said coldly, come back tomorrow and remember your place. I looked past her through the glass door at the rain and the city lights. Then I looked at Misaki standing near the entrance holding an event clipboard. Yui stood beside her. Haruto stood behind Riene, handsome and useless for the first time all night. I looked back at Riene. No, I said. One word, not dramatic, not elegant. My throat was tight, my hands were shaking. I wanted to sit down immediately. But it was the cleanest word I had ever said to her. Riene's face changed, not much enough. The old hierarchy cracked in that hallway, and everyone close enough to see it understood. I was still scared, but I was no longer hers to scare. Misaki made the offer after the event ended. The restaurant was half cleaned, chairs tilted against tables, floor damp near the entrance from everyone's shoes. The loud part of the night had ended, but the pressure stayed in the room like heat from a stove. Outside, the rain had stopped, the city street shone under the signs and passing headlights. I stood near the door with my staff pass still clipped to my shirt. I should have taken it off, I did not want to. Misaki came from the counter with 2 envelopes in her hand. One is your pay for tonight, she said. I stared. Pay. You worked, I thought I was helping. You did, work can be paid. That idea felt radical. Someone alert the government. I took the envelope with both hands, carefully left first, because my right hand had caused enough municipal damage. Misaki held out the second envelope. This is for next weekend, she said, if you want it. I looked at her. There is another event, I asked. Several, Misaki said. Small private gatherings, restaurant openings, client dinners, people who need someone quick, polite, and honest when the room starts falling apart. Are you sure you mean me? Misaki smiled. You almost gave fish to a dessert table. I knew that would come back. You also fixed the seating list, calmed down 2 guests, caught a tray, and kept moving even after being humiliated in front of everyone. The word humiliated made my stomach twist. Misaki did not soften it. I liked that. So yes, she said, I mean you. Behind me, Riene's heels clicked on the floor. I did not turn at first. Old reflex wanted me to. Riene entered a room and bodies reacted. That was how gravity worked. This time I let 1 second pass, then I turned. Riene stood near the entrance with Haruto behind her. Her coat was buttoned. Her face was calm again, but not the same kind of calm. The polished surface was back, but the room had already seen what was underneath. Haruto looked tired, not ruined, not destroyed. Just less bright, like someone had turned down the lighting he depended on. He had not lost his face, his job, or his clean suit. That was not the point was that the room had stopped automatically arranging itself around him. For a man like Haruto, that was a small death. Yui leaned against the counter with her arms folded, watching like she had bought tickets. Riene looked at the envelope in my hand. "What is that?" she asked. Misaki answered before I could. "Work." Riene's eyes moved to Misaki. "Weekend event help," Misaki added, "if Renji accepts." Haruto laughed softly. "That sounds like a lot for him." No one laughed with him. That was a beautiful sound. Nothing. Haruto noticed. His smile faded. Riene kept looking at me. "Renji," she said, "do not make decisions because someone praised you once." The line was not loud. It did not need to be. It was the old hook, the old leash, the old way she reached into me and found the part that did not trust happiness. For 1 second it worked. I looked at the envelope, a weekend roll, restaurants, clients, social rooms. More women, more accidents, more chances to look stupid, more chances for this illegal Rizz gift to throw me into trouble I was absolutely not qualified to survive. Still, my fingers tightened around the envelope. That was the funny part, the scary part, the human part. After all the panic and humiliation, I wanted the door. I wanted to see what happened if I walked through before someone like Riene told me I was allowed. A week earlier, my biggest weekend plan had been discount noodles and avoiding mirrors. Now someone was inviting me into rooms where my shoes might be judged by candlelight. Smarter man might have said no, a safer man definitely would have said no. But the lonely street from that first night flashed in my mind. Wet pavement, 3 coins, a grandma with pills. My life before that moment, folded small enough to fit in an office drawer. Then I saw Riene from that same night, telling me women only smiled at me because they were polite. I looked at her now. She was still gorgeous, still sharp. Still the kind of woman who could make a man feel chosen by looking at him and worthless by speaking. She was not the whole room anymore. Isaki stood beside the open door. Yui watched from the counter. Haruto waited for me to shrink. The city waited outside with wet lights and weekend noise. My right hand stayed in my pocket. I smiled, not too much. I was still me. "I know," I said. Rene blinked. "You know what?" "I know I get excited too easily. I know I make dumb choices. I know I look like an idiot at least 12 times this week." Yui said, "Low estimate." I pointed at her with the envelope. "Supportive silence, please." Isaki smiled. Even a guest passing near the door smiled. Riene did not. I looked back at her, but I would rather look stupid walking into a bigger life than look obedient standing in the one you picked for me. The restaurant went quiet. Haruto's eyes moved to Riene, waiting for her to answer. Riene looked at Haruto. For a second I saw the old pattern trying to form. Riene would cut, Haruto would smile, the room would accept it, and I would fold. But Haruto looked away first. Riene's lips parted. For once no perfect insult came out. Her silence did more damage to her than shouting could have. Haruto looked at her, waiting for the elegant finishing line. Yui waited with a smile that said she wanted popcorn. Isaki simply waited like the room belonged to patience now, not Riene. Nothing came, not one clean cut. For the woman who had built a throne out of sharp words, that was a fall. That was the payoff, not applause, not a dramatic speech, not Riene falling to her knees. That was never her style, and honestly it would have looked weird with those heels. The payoff was silence. Reina Kurosawa, the woman who always had the last word, had nothing sharp enough to put me back. Misaki held the second envelope out again. I took it. The paper touched my right hand. Nothing strange happened. No glow, no music, no grandma laughter from the clouds. Just my fingers closing around a door someone had opened for me. Riene saw it. Her eyes followed my hand, then my face. There was something in her expression I could not name cleanly. Anger, jealousy, regret, pride, maybe all of it fighting in a room too small. She stepped toward me once. "Renji," she said, not Sato, Renji. My chest tightened. I hated how much that still mattered, but it did not move me backward. I stepped toward the door. Yui pushed herself off the counter and grinned. "Try not to get adopted by rich women next weekend," she said. "No promises," I said. Isaki opened the door. Cool night air entered the restaurant. Outside, the city looked too large for a man like me, too bright, too expensive. Too full of hands I should probably not shake. Perfect. I walked out with the envelope in my pocket, my right hand hidden, my heart beating like it had stolen something. Behind me, Riene did not call again. That silence followed me to the sidewalk. For 26 years I had been the background guy, the broke guy, the office joke. The man women smiled at only because it was polite. Then a grandma stabbed me in the butt, and my life became illegal. I still did not know where that old woman went. I still had questions, a lot of questions. But as I stood under the restaurant lights with the city ahead of me and a weekend invitation in my pocket, I decided something important. If the universe wanted to hand me a suspicious gift through my right cheek, I was not going to waste it by crawling back into Reina Kurosawa's shadow. Maybe I would mess up next weekend. Actually, not maybe, I would definitely mess up. I would probably shake the wrong hand, say the wrong thing, and embarrass myself in front of someone wearing shoes worth my rent. But that was still better than being safe in a life where the best I could hope for was Riene insulting me less loudly. Not anymore. Next weekend there would be hotter rooms, sharper men, richer women, and probably at least one disaster involving my right hand. That was the part that made my stomach twist and my face smile at the same time. The illegal Rizz had followed me out of the office, through trains, ramen shops, laundromats, arcades, and now into a door with city lights behind it. I did not suddenly become cool. I did not become Haruto with worse shoes. I was still Renji Sato, the man who could turn buying ramen into a public incident and laundry into courtroom evidence. But I was moving. For once, I was moving towards something instead of away from Riene. I should have been terrified, but I was smiling too.